This whole John Wayne rugged individualism, I do it on my own, I get it out the mud, like all that screwed me royally. That is my number one thing. Like, get a community. It doesn't have to be my community, but get one.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This show is for entrepreneurs who want to play bigger in business and in life. And today I have a very special guest who I met at a speaking event not too long ago. And I absolutely love her mission to eliminate the wealth gap. And oftentimes, as entrepreneurs, we get really focused on scaling the revenue and our active income that we forget one of the greatest gifts, especially in real estate, is to scale passive income. And my guest is all about creating generational wealth. And she is the co-founder of Women in Real Estate. So welcome to the show, Brittany Rose.
Thank you so much. And it was such a fun event that we were at. And it was great meeting you. And your speech was fantastic. Like, I took away a lot of gems.
Oh, I'm honored to have you on the show. And I want to just dive into it about your mission. Absolutely love it. It's what drew me to having you on the show. So just tell our audience, what led you to where you're at today?
Wow. I mean, that's I think a long story, but I guess the shortest answer is doing the work. In Women in Real Estate, we really focus on the foundational principles of who you are as a person, your core values, your mission, what were you put here to do, right? And after doing those activities with several cohorts of women who were coming through the program, I finally figured out what that was for me. And it took me several times of doing these activities. And I had always kind of had an idea around what it was that was important to me. I really felt like people who look like me, Black people who have been, have encountered systematic oppression in our country, there needed to be some rectifying of that. And I think that can be really uncomfortable for some people because they come from a scarcity mindset. But for me, it's the fact that we can all win. We can all live wonderful lives. We can all be abundant. We can all do the things that we love, right? So thinking through that, figuring out all the pieces that come with that, and then figuring out what piece I was most passionate about, and that's real estate.
So what does it exactly mean to eliminate that wealth gap or to create the generational wealth?
So I'm not going to pretend that I am an economic expert. So I'll tell you what it means for me. For me, eliminating the wealth gap means giving folks an even playing field and really focusing on equity over equality, right? We know from the history of our country, we have had hundreds of years of systemic oppression, and that people of color in particular have not been afforded all of the same opportunities that other people have. And so for me, it's about eliminating those systematic roadblocks that prohibit people from growing, keeping, retaining, passing on their wealth. Because there are people in our country that make a lot of money, Black and brown people who make a lot of money, that encounter issues that really come from previous generations that prohibit them from really taking full advantage of the work that they've put in.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that you had mentioned when it comes to this wealth gap, and I think you are at the forefront of it, with having started Women in Real Estate. Not only do you have the color and the systemic issues, but also the gender wealth gap.
100%. And what really tied Women in Real Estate into my life mission was the fact that when you look at communities all around the world, when you pour into women, when you educate women, when you give them fair opportunities, when you provide, societal support for women, you see entire communities rise. I was just having this conversation the other day with a friend talking about the talented 10 theory. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so it basically says if you take 10% of the population, and in this case, we're talking about Black people. So the theory was if 10% of Black people rose to the highest standard, that in turn, it would pull everybody else up. But that's not what happened. And I always say that the talented 10 theory was a great theory, and I think it could work. The problem is we did it with the wrong gender. When you put that emphasis on women, you see the communities rise. You see education become stronger. You see health becoming stronger. You see economic opportunities leveling out, right? Women naturally take care of communities. Mm-hmm. And so no shade to men, like absolutely no shade to men. They tend to be focused on their family unit. They don't always tend to be focused on the community as a whole. So when we pour into women, when we give women opportunities, when we collaborate with women, we tend to see globally environments where everyone wins.
I love that. I love how you explained it. I love what you guys are all about. Obviously, me being a woman and even rising in through the corporate ladder, there's always those, what they say, glass ceiling. And the fact of the matter is you have both. And we used to call it either we've got the women, we've got the minority, we've got all of that when you're rising. And then sometimes even having a family can play into that factor when it comes into like leadership in the corporate world and your opportunities. So absolutely am just in awe by all the things that you say. So how did you guys really start Women in Real Estate?
It's so funny. Kaylani Blackwell is my co-founder. And we didn't discover until this year that we actually joined Clubhouse on the same day. But we met on the app Clubhouse, and it was during the pandemic. Everybody was locked in their houses. We were all just like trying to find connectivity, trying to find other like-minded people. And I didn't even know what Clubhouse was. I got this random invite from my accountant, and I was like, okay, well, I don't have much else to do. I'll jump on. And I started finding all of these really incredible Black real estate professionals, particularly in multifamily development, syndication, stuff like that, stuff that I had no real ties to at the time. So I was like, well, what can I give in this space? Like, I might not be educated enough to teach people, but what can I do? And what I could do is ask the questions. I could get into the nitty gritty of making it actionable for others and for myself, and really help people explain and kind of build a pathway to the success that these other folks on the app had created. So I just started moderating every real estate room that I possibly could. And I would literally fall asleep on this app and wake up to the app. Like, I just absorbed as much knowledge as I could. And so one day, Kehlani was in a room as well. And you have to use discernment. That's her favorite word. You have to use discernment about who you're going to listen to. And some of the gentlemen on the app were just not giving great advice for women, because we know women encounter different challenges in the world. And so she kind of got up on stage and was like, hey, this is like, I don't know, am I allowed to cuss?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was like, this is shitty advice. Stop listening to these people. Right. And so we became fast friends. And then I was like, hey, we need a space for just women. Like, we should do a Women in Real Estate club. And at that time I had multiple other clubs. I could not handle, leading another one. And so we decided that she would do it. And I pushed her like for weeks. I had to be like on her ass about it. She finally did it. It grew like gangbusters. And then I was like, hey, like, we need to take this off the app. This is clearly a need. And I'm a marketer by heart. Like, I love marketing. And I was just like, we don't know what's going to happen with this social media platform. And we really have something here. So let's take it off the app. Let's grow it in other spaces. Let's find ways where we can grow community. And so that's what we did.
I love it. And I can tell you that I resonate with everything that you said, because some of the investment clubs or rooms that you get into, there's very, very, very few women, especially in the multi-family sector. In some of the biggest conferences, I'll never forget it. A few years back, I went to a conference, and probably out of 1,000 people, I was like one of 4 women in the whole conference. And so I love it when we could, change things up, shake things up, and really talk about wealth, or really talk about money, and just as much as the men do, and not be scared to do it. Right. And so if somebody was looking, and you guys have really climbed, I've heard about it through multiple people about your club. If somebody that's listening that wanted to start a club, what are some of the things, knowing what you know today, should they consider? Especially the one that has lots of clubs and didn't need another one.
I think that number one, aligning with the right partner is so important. It was completely like divine ordering that brought Kehlani and I together. And we balance each other so well because we're so different. So finding the right partner, I think, is number one, because I can't imagine doing all this by myself. I mean, we have 4 sectors of our company, and I would not be able to do it alone. There's no way. So that would be number one for me. Number 2 is always coming from a place of service. Like, whether you're a wire member or not, I want to see you win. And Kehlani has the same heart for people. And so that's the most important thing. When you are just in it to see everybody rise and see everybody get to where they want to go, everything else just falls in line. Like we were talking offline, and I was like, how could I ask for a better life? Like, I'm extraordinarily blessed. And I think it's because my focus is on helping people around me. I think there's a Zig Ziglar quote that's like, you can have everything you want if you just help everybody else get what they want. It's so true. Just focus on making sure that people have the resources, the knowledge, that you're sharing the information that you've learned, that you're shortening their learning curve, that you're putting them in touch with the right people, and everything else just kind of falls into place.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you guys have 4 sectors. What are the 4 sectors, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. The first is our membership base. And that is like our clubby club, I guess is how to describe it. It's subscription based, and you get access to like a 5-week course with our SEC attorney, a 5-week course with our CPA, a course on business credit, wholesaling with Chris Jefferson and Keith Everett. And then just every different real estate sector you could think of, from commercial to residential, we go through as much as we can. And so it's all housed in the library. And then we also have 2 times a month, we meet with each other to do accountability. And so we talk about what are our 12-week sprints? What are we accomplishing right now? Who needs to be connected to whom? What resources do you need? What gaps can we fill in for you? Like all of that. And then we also have chapters. So we have 6 chapters across the country currently. We're opening some more this year. So those chapters have local events. So you're getting a hyper local network, and then you're getting a national network just to support you in whatever your goals are. So that's number 1. And that's already a lot of work by itself.
Right.
Number 2 is our nationwide real estate team with EXP. It's both commercial and residential. And that also includes our referral network. So you don't have to be at EXP or any particular brokerage or any particular team for us to want to work with you. We have a goal of helping to transact 2,000 properties in the next year or so. And to do that, the only way to do that is to collaborate, right? And so we're always looking for real estate professionals that want to work together to essentially take the first step to help eliminate the wealth gap. Like home ownership is a huge part of the wealth gap. So that's number 2, commercial, residential, EXP team, and referral network. Number 3 is our Wire Next program, and that is just our way of giving back. So we work with high school and college age kids to expose them to real estate and give them real estate education opportunities and job opportunities. Because if we had known what we know now back in college or high school, I know you can attest to this, life would look a whole lot different, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really important that we focus on pulling as we climb. And then lastly, we have a fund. So we have our Wire Real Estate Fund, which focuses on supporting and raising capital for multifamily acquisition and development led by women and global majority individuals. And so undercapitalization is a huge problem. Even if you find a deal, if you don't have the right partners, if you don't have the right backing, if you don't have the right guidance, it can land you in a really tough spot. I have been in that spot. So we're doing everything that we can to just make sure we're providing people with the systems and the resources and the tools to get them wherever they want to go.
I love all the different sectors and I love how diverse it is. And I know before this, we were kind of talking offline, about funds, and there's a wrong way and there's a right way to kind of do it. And I'd love for, I know that a lot of people that listen to our show are entrepreneurs, and some of them are in real estate investing. So let's talk about that real fast.
So my disclaimer is that I am not an SEC attorney and this is not legal advice, but I have done it the wrong way and I have done it the right way. So from my personal experience, if you're doing a deal and you have one, maybe two partners that might be putting up the capital, in exchange you're doing all the work, that is a little bit more reasonable. But when you have more than, I would say, two people investing in a deal with you, and you don't have very clearly defined roles to where the SEC could look at your structure and say everybody is an equal contributor, then you're in SEC territory. You are managing a security, right? And with that comes a lot of tripwires, and you have to be very careful. Now, the way that people have commonly gotten around this, and the way that I was taught to do it, was to use promissory notes. Well, that doesn't mean you're not a security. You're still a security. And so, you need an SEC attorney. You need to be registered with the SEC. You need to have your proper exemption. There's Reg A, Reg D, Reg CF. There's all these different nuances to it. You need to be educated on that. I was just reading an article about how the most commonly punishable offense by in way of imprisonment, right, were people who improperly used promissory notes. So it is something that I think we're starting to hear more about in social media. And so people are just going out and doing it, and they're not being properly educated. You need to have an attorney. I'm happy to connect you to mine. He's amazing, but you definitely need to do that. I personally did something a little bit different than what I typically see happening. So I did a Reg D, but I tied everybody's investment to a promissory note for a specific property, because my investors tend to be, and it's a debt fund, not an equity fund, by the way. Mm-hmm. My investors tend to be newer investors, and they tend to not be very sophisticated real estate professionals. And so putting people into an equity fund, I think there's a little bit more risk, because if the project goes well, you have a lot of upside, but if the project doesn't, then you have a lot of downside. And people who are not in real estate and don't understand real estate, they want their money back. They're not interested in what happened with the project. They want their money back. And so by giving them a promissory note, I'm saying you're going to get X amount of money in X amount of time, and that's just what it is. I'm covering any of the downside. I'm taking responsibility for anything that might happen in the project. Mm-hmm. So that way I'm still SEC compliant, but I'm also giving people some security about what their promissory note is tied to. It's not just floating around in a fund, and they're getting very specific guidelines about what they can expect.
Where should people go to as far as resources if you were to point them in any resource?
I don't want to say this because it's going to sound like a shameless plug, but honestly, our Women in Real Estate Library, the 5-week course that our attorney, Nick McGrew, did, broke it down in a way I've never seen it broken down before. I take a lot of real estate courses. I'm involved in a lot of programs. He did such a good job from a legal perspective, explaining exactly what you can do in each type of fund, what kind of investor you can take, what kind of marketing you can do, like the whole nine. And so I'm going to say Women in Real Estate. I haven't found it anywhere else broken down like he broke it down.
Love it. And I said this earlier, I love how diversified you are with your knowledge, and you have the knowledge to obviously manage a fund. If somebody was looking and somebody's listening in, and you talked about, very sophisticated investors and not so sophisticated, or people that don't study this all the time. If somebody had some funds today or some money to invest today, where would you recommend they invest it?
Okay, so what I cannot say, because my SEC attorney will grill my ass if I do this, I cannot say, oh, come invest with me. Like I can't say.
Yeah. Would it be real estate? Would it be stocks? Would it be sitting in a bank account because of inflation? Would it be cars? Would it be like
real estate hands down? Because I'm a real estate, real estate hands down. But
Bitcoin, crypto, all the things, right? I know that's what everybody thinks about that aren't like very savvy. Is like, hey, I've ran into some funds and, what should I do?
I always say diversify. So I think like a little bit in Bitcoin. I'm in Bitcoin. Like, yeah, I put a little bit away each month into that, but really absolutely not a savings account. Absolutely not. Because you are losing money every day. Your money is in a savings account with inflation and I think we just opened our Chase business accounts. We had to like reorganize our structure and get them all like owned by different entities. And the banker was like, yeah, and you're going to get a 0.01% interest rate.
If that, right?
It was ridiculous. Like absolutely not a bank account. I would say real estate, especially now that the market is undergoing a little bit of a pullback and some turmoil. It's a great opportunity to find good deals. If you don't have the time or the knowledge, then find people that you know, like, and trust and invest with them. I would say have diverse real estate investments. So we partner with an organization called passiveinvesting.com, and they have a lot of very large multifamily syndications. And so their timeline is very different. The type of investor that they take is very different. And so, that might be a good fit for a portion of your money. But then like, if you look at projects like on my end, I'm doing much shorter timelines with the same type of return, but a little bit higher risk. So diversifying your risk portfolio and industry is really important.
So good. What's one lesson that as you look back on your journey that has impacted you the most?
My first foray into real estate, just so bad, did everything wrong. And it's what led me to Women in Real Estate though, because I realized had I had a community to lean on, had I had people to ask questions to, had I had people who all across the country in all different sectors of real estate who would pick up my phone call when I called, who would put up the $100,000 that I needed as a bridge loan, right? Like had I had those people in my life, those deals would have gone completely different. But this whole John Wayne rugged individualism, I do it on my own, I get it out the mud, like all that screwed me. Royally screwed me. Okay. So that is my number one thing. Like get a community. It doesn't have to be my community, but get one. You have to have mentorship. I know you're huge on having a coach. So important. Like spend the money. Don't spend it frivolously. Make sure you do the research. Make sure you know, like, and trust these people. Make sure they have referrals. But definitely be willing to put the money up so that you can save thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future.
No one succeeds alone. And what do they say? ego is the thief of joy and like learning.
Mm.
Right. So what mistakes have you seen people make when it comes to wealth or building wealth?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I think the number one mistake that I see people make when they're building wealth is not thinking for the long term. I think that when you're building wealth, it really isn't meant for you necessarily. It's really meant for your future generations. And so I always talk about like 100-year plan. Like, what's your 100-year plan for your family? Do you have those things set up? Are you contributing little by little? Are you teaching your children, your family, your network, how to invest, how to build wealth, how to collaborate to do those things? I think that's number one. Everybody is so worried about their bottom line dollar today that they don't have any plan for what it looks like 20 years from now, let alone 100.
So good. I'll never forget a book that I had read a while ago, and we had brought the author into one of our regional meeting for expansion, and it was called Intentional Legacy. We always talk about like generational wealth, and sometimes we tend to think that it's only finance or it's only money, but there's also some tangible and intangible things like books. And so that book that I have, and most of the books that I have, I actually write notes. So in case anything ever happens, they can say, this is what great grandma Raquel was thinking about while she was reading this book.
Okay. And it's called Intentional Legacy.
Intentional legacy, because as you study the generational like cycle, no matter how much like you try to pass on and educate, a lot of times it stops at like, you're lucky if it gets to cycle 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. I'm definitely going to download that book. I'm definitely a book nerd. I love books.
Yeah, so do I. And so what's next for Brittany? And what are you most excited about that you're working on right now?
I'm super excited. A few months ago, Women in Real Estate had a Diversify Development Summit in Houston. We had a bunch of our friends who are developers come out and just educate people in the community, because Houston is a hotbed for gentrification and new development. And I looked around and realized that there was probably no better opportunity that I was ever going to get to have a solid network and solid opportunity in one place. So I decided to move out to Houston. I found a piece of land. We're building 5 single-family homes there. We're looking at acquiring the property across the street as well. So it's shaping up to be a bigger than I thought, but I'm super excited. I have a lot of strong support folks, a strong support system in Houston. And so I'm really excited just to get down there and get to work. That is by far the thing I am most excited about. We're currently in entitlements where, we have the plans. The house is super cute. I know it's like the last thing that investors care about. Oh, the house is super cute, but it's important to me.
Oh yes, it's important.
So I'm ready, and I'm ready not to be, I'm in DC. I'm from like the DC area, and I'm ready not to be in the cold for the winter. I'm super excited about being warm for the winter. So that's what's next for me. And then, of course, growing Wire, it really has taken a life of its own. I'm so excited to see kind of what the next year brings for us. And it's been life-changing. It's probably been like the most significant thing that I've ever done with my life, is to just have the opportunity to watch other people grow. Like, we've created opportunities for other people to be fund managers and syndicators and wholesalers, flippers, whatever. Like, really, just these women are changing their communities.
I love it. And I can't wait to see that whole project and watch you. And for those that are listening and want to connect with you, and we'll also put it in the show notes, where can people connect with Brittany?
Best place to connect with me is on Instagram. My handle is at B like Brittany .theboss, THE boss. And that's hands down the best way connect with me. I can't manage but so many platforms at a time. So that's always the best place to reach out to me. And I try to answer every DM. If I don't answer it, blame my head and not my heart, DM me again. So
Yes. And she's definitely the boss. And as we wrap up, there's always a question that I ask every guest that comes on the show is, what is one thing that Brittany does to play bigger in business and in life?
Wow, that's such a good question. I think I'm just always looking for bigger opportunities to serve. The world is in such need of people that are willing to help in small ways and in big ways. So as much as I can help is what I want to do. I always want to find ways where I can contribute. I just feel like I've been incredibly blessed. Like there's nothing that I could have done to deserve the life that I've been blessed with. And that it would be disrespectful to God to not play at my highest level and be my biggest self. So I just always try to go bigger and do better.
Oh my gosh, Brittany, I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for showing up big as always. I appreciate you. And I'm excited to see what comes next. I'm excited to see all the lives you get to change and impact and this new development. I'm sure it's going to be the first of many. And I'm just really, really pumped and excited that I got to meet you at San Diego. And I cannot wait to keep playing bigger with you.
Thank you. And I'm excited to play bigger with you too.